Come aboard the journey of the First Fleet with me. To begin our journey, we start in Britain during the 1780s. Britain during this time was a grim and nasty place. There were many people living in crowded dwellings. Clothes were tattered. Their lives were short due to the filth and disease that plagued the city. The majority of people were unemployed and desperate. This resulted in an influx of people into the city, unable to feed or clothe themselves or their family. This caused an increase in crime as they were forced to steal and resort to criminal acts in order to survive. The laws during this time were harsh. Over 200 crimes carried the death penalty. Even petty crimes such as burglary or theft, or even chopping down a tree, were punishable by death. However, as time went on, the courts became more lenient toward these petty crimes, and instead of the death penalty, they were put into jail. This, however, led to an overcrowding in jails. This led to the convicts being housed in hulks, old ships that were converted into floating jails. But these were becoming overcrowded too. Up to 300 prisoners were housed on these boats, which were around the same size as around 6 bus lengths. Take a moment to think about that. What must it have felt like to be squished in these conditions? A solution was required. The people were fed up, and the government resorted to transportation. Penal transportation meant that prisoners were taken against their will to a penal colony, which simply is a place where convicts lived and worked for the British Empire to build the New World. Even though transportation was a harsh punishment, it was viewed as a better alternative to the death penalty. Crimes that resulted in the sentence of larcency and saw transportation included burglary, robbery, fraud and theft. Transportation lasted around 7 to 14 years as a sentence. Although most of the convicts aboard the First Fleet were British, there were also African, American and French convicts. Convicts from Britain used to be transported to America. However, after the American Revolution, this was no longer an option. James Cook explored Australia in 1770 and along with Joseph Banks suggested Botany Bay in New South Wales, Australia as a location to solve the problem and build a British settlement before another country claimed the land. The decision was approved, and the establishment of a penal colony at Botany Bay consisting of convicts, their guards and government officials was in progress. What do you think of this solution? How do you think the convicts felt? There were 11 ships that sailed to Australia, 6 transport vessels, 3 supply ships and 2 Royal Navy escort vessels. The ships that transported the convicts were no larger than the Manly Ferry. On the 13th of May 1787, the 11 ships of the First Fleet departed Portsmouth, England, on their epic 8-month journey to Australia. Captain Arthur Phillip led the fleet, sailed from Port Smith to Tenerife, then to Rio de Janeiro, and from there they set across the Atlantic through the Cape of Good Hope to Cape Town and on to Australia. The ships arrived on Australian soil on January 18, 1788. Within a few days of being at the new land, it was realised that it wasn't suitable for settlement. The reasons were lack of water, poor quality of soil, exposure to strong winds. Why do you think these were issues? The convicts remained on board, awaiting what was to happen with the new land. A search party ventured off to find a better location, which they found 12 kilometres north at Port Jackson. They spent 3 days there before selecting an area Phillip named Sydney Cove. This location had excellent natural harbour and a stream of reliable water. Phillip and his team returned to the waiting fleet at Botany Bay. The fleet then travelled to Sydney Cove, arriving on the 26th of January 1788. Officials came ashore, raised the British flag and took possession of the land in the name of the British government. And we celebrate the 26th of January as Australia Day. Though the First Fleet arrived at Botany Bay on the 18th of January, it wasn't until the 28th of January that the first convict stepped foot off the ships. Australia was called Terra Nullius, a Latin term meaning nobody's land, a concept that was established by Europeans to justify the occupation of foreign lands they settled in. Convicts were actively involved in the building of roads, hospitals and housing in order to create the new British colony. You've been tasked to write up a story of a convict's experience. The first challenge is to explore the words and dates you have documented from the video to add depth to your story. You'll find helpful websites and information in the link below this video. You may like to create a mind map, sentences or a word cloud. These are all options available in the link. Using this planning phase to ensure you understand the key concepts of the First Fleet and create a word bank for writing your narrative later on. The website has been designed to allow you to track the journey of the convict from Britain to Australia as you work through the sheets provided under the activity sheet section on the website. The data provided through this website is merely a starting point, leading you to information sources. In the end, you will document your convict's journey on Padlet. The use of pictures is encouraged. How to use the Padlet feature will be communicated to you after your final drafts are submitted. Have fun researching.